brought to you by the Centene Charitable Foundation, with major support provided by Target and the Marriott Foundation. As a courtesy to this evening's artists and other audience members, we ask that you turn off your mobile device at this time. Photography and recording of any kind during the performance is prohibited. The Millennium Stage celebrates the human spirit by presenting a free performance at 6 p.m., 365 days a year. All of our performances are broadcast live and available on demand at kennedy-center.org, as well as our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Now, please welcome your feature presentation, Vince Ebert's Sexy Science.
Good evening, and welcome to the Millennium Stage at the Kennedy Center. It's a big honor for me to be here. Thank you for this overwhelming applause. Thank you for having me here and giving me the opportunity to do my stand-up comedy show. My name is Vince Ebert, and my accent gives it away. I'm German. I'm a German comedian, and I know what you are thinking now. German comedians are like English chefs or sober Scotsmen, Texan Democrats, a contradiction in itself. And above all, I'm a certified physicist. So, it's gonna be a lot of fun tonight. Because we physicists actually have a very good sense of humor. First time I entered the lab of my university, I saw a sign saying, "Don't look directly into the laser beam with your remaining eye." German sense of humor. By the way, did you know that Angela Merkel, our chancellor, she's a physicist as well? Yeah. Some say I'm the second German physicist who works in the comedy business. And inspired by her style, my show is called Sexy Science. This is definitely not a contradiction because science is in no way abstract or free of emotions. Science is about asking thrilling questions. Why is the sky blue? Why is the night black? Why shouldn't we eat yellow snow? People often say to me, "Oh, you are like these nerdy guys from the Big Bang Theory." And just in case you don't know by now, these nerdy Big Bang guys are just actors. Who would have thought? No, they just pretend to be scientists with all these boring cliches. What's the difference between an extroverted and an introverted physicist? When talking to you, the extroverted won't look at his shoes, he will look at yours. Very funny. As a physicist, you have to deal with a lot of stereotypes. Did you watch the movie Angels and Demons with Tom Hanks? Huh? Yeah, beautiful movie. Right at the beginning, there's a very attractive female particle physicist who creates an amount of antimatter powerful enough to destroy a big city. And from a scientific perspective, this is complete bullshit. I've studied physics for 6 years, but I never met such an attractive female physicist. Anyway, for the next hour, I would like to open the wonderful world of natural sciences to you. I've been doing this in Germany for almost 20 years, and I'm now doing it for the first time here in the US in English. Yeah. And the reason is obvious, because the language of science is English. But it hasn't always been like this. 100 years ago, the language of science was German. Did you know that? Yeah, back in the day, every well-educated person in the world had to learn German. And if we hadn't screwed up 80 years ago, I could perform here in front of you in Washington in my own language. Probably even in my own country. Who knows? By the way, are there any Germans in the room? Oh, that many. I didn't expect that. It's going to be a serious evening. Other people from Europe? Italians? Where are you from? Belgium. Yeah. French? French people here? Whoa. One French. Brits? Are there Brits in the... Two. Okay. Brits? Oh, thank you for coming. I really appreciate it because we all know the British humor is the gold standard. For me, the best British comedian ever is Prince Philip, husband of the Queen. Remember his great punchline when he stood in front of a building in Canada and said, "I declare this thing open, whatever it is." Brilliant. And he has a broad expertise in science as well. Once he instructed a 12-year-old who wanted to go into space, "Forget it, little boy, you are way too fat to be an astronaut." British humor, impossible to beat. For the last couple of years, I did a few shows in Great Britain, and the comedy shows in Great Britain are very similar to here. A very relaxed crowd, a lot of interaction with the audience, sometimes a little bit rude and a little bit rough. If the guy on stage isn't good enough, the British audience heckles him in a very constructive fashion. "Piss off, you bloody bastard!" In Germany, this could never happen because we don't have any hecklers in German comedy clubs. I mean, we don't even have comedy clubs. Now, in our country, humor is a very serious business. Going to a comedy club is like visiting a museum. And you don't stand in front of a painting and say, "Oh, get off the wall, Picasso." In Great Britain, it's completely different. Heckling is very popular. And recently, the Brits have taken heckling to a whole different level by voting leave. Brexit is heckling at its best. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the situation in Europe. Yeah? But you know a region called Europe? Yeah? Okay, so now the situation is a little bit complicated. The Brits have decided to leave the European Union. It's a big discussion in Europe, and in some way I really can understand the Brexit vote, because this great and noble idea of the European Union, peace, democracy, freedom, is completely spoiled with stupid rules and regulations and laws. That's the reason why we Germans like it so much. Because we love stupid rules. In Germany, in our train stations, innocent smokers are forced to stand in small yellow squares painted on the floor in order to keep the non-smokers away from the poison. That's about as intelligent as dividing a swimming pool into a peeing and a non-peeing section. If you tell a German finance office that you make your living as an illusionist, you have to deduct 7% VAT. If you work as a magician, 19%. I'm not kidding, and I tried to find out why, so here's the explanation I got. Illusionists let virgins disappear on stage. And in Germany, this is an artistic act, so reduce tax 7%. Magicians, on the other hand, saw virgins in half. And that's not art, it's a craft. 90%. Everything is so complicated in Germany. Well, I think it's almost the same in every country. Take you guys, America. A lot of complicated things. Yeah. In Illinois, it's illegal to have dinner in a burning restaurant. Keep that in mind when you are in Chicago. Never ever book a table that's on fire, because it's against the law. In Nebraska, whale hunting is strictly forbidden. That's the law. Very stupid law, because Nebraska is a landlocked state. They don't have access to the sea anyway, but whaling is forbidden. be fair, it's not the whole story yet. Nebraska originally was colonized by German immigrants. So we Germans established this bullshit. Sorry for that. Yeah. I just moved to New York for 1 year to make science great again, and yeah. And no worries, I don't mention the evil T word, it's not my topic. No, I really love America because you're such a proud nation. In the US, yeah, still, yeah. In the US, you can keep a suicidal person off from jumping just by telling him, "Sir, you can be proud to be American." If you did this to a German, you would jump before you can finish the sentence. I really love America. The American way, always asking, "How are you?" I mean, you don't care, but you do ask. And the answer is always, "Thank you, I'm fine, I'm great." In Germany, "How are you?" is not a common greeting phrase, it's a specific medical question. "How are you?" "Oh, don't get me started. I have problems with my left kidney, my back hurts, I have a sore throat, pretty sure it's cancer. Small talk is not our thing in Germany. We meet someone from America at a dinner party, and after 5 minutes we ask him, "What the hell were you thinking when you killed all these Native Americans?" That's our idea of a relaxed dinner conversation. We always want to get to the bottom of things. Maybe that's the reason why we have so many excellent scientists in Germany. Coming back to the point. 100 years ago, German physicists figured out that light is something in between a particle and a wave. So what American scientists said? We just want to light up our rooms. Such a simple approach is way too superficial for us, because we wanted to know exactly what light is. Therefore, the German Max Planck developed quantum physics, whereas the American Thomas Edison only invented the light bulb. To be fair, without this invention, we would still be sitting around a candle watching Netflix. German mentality is deeply shaped by the spirit of Goethe's Faust, the desire to understand whatever holds the world together in its innermost folds. And I felt this desire too. When I was 10, I took my canary in its cage outside during a thunderstorm just to check if Faraday was right. And he was. The bird wasn't struck by lightning, it died of a heart attack anyway. Later that day, I peed on an electric fence to prove Ohm's law. I'm sure you all know Georg Ohm, founder of the German resistance. And during this time, I also got a pretty good idea of how relativity theory works, which says time passes slower or faster depending on the space. Or as Einstein put it, the length of 1 minute depends delicately on at which side of the toilet door you are. I was born and raised in a remote village in Bavaria. I'm sure you all know Bavaria. Yeah? It's like Texas without guns, and the name of my hometown is Amorbach. Beautiful name, isn't it? Amor, like the Roman god of love. That's why we have 4,000 citizens sharing 3 family names. City of love. And it's also a very Catholic area. Very religious people there, and I can remember when I was a child, I was forced to go to the Holy Mass every Sunday. And of course I did. Only once in my childhood I skipped. And 3 days later the Pope died. I felt guilty for years. But I managed to get rid of my fear, of my superstition, because I was curious. I always wanted to know what's behind the curtain. When I was 17, me and a few pals went to Frankfurt for the first time. Big city in Germany, financial capital. And for me, it was like a culture shock. We walked through a park and suddenly we noticed amounts of syringes lying on the lawn. And I thought to myself, oh, those poor diabetics. And then we went into a strip club. And for me, it was like a revelation. I sat in the first row staring at the stage and I thought to myself, two dancers in the southern hemisphere turn around the pole in the opposite direction. And that's why I decided to study physics. To make a long story short, since then I see it as a mission to tell people about the fascinating things going on in science. Because science is not about complicated equations or abstract theories. No, the basic idea of science is very simple. Scientific thinking is basically the testing of assumptions. That's it. For example, if I assume there is beer in the fridge and I go and check, I'm behaving like a scientist. Big difference to theology. In theology, assumptions are usually not verified. So if I say there's beer in the fridge and don't check, I'm a theologian. If I check it out, I'm a scientist. If I look into the fridge, find no beer and still say it's there, that's New Age. But what do I do if the fridge is locked? Then I have to look for other ways of finding out. I can shake it, weigh it, x-ray it, burn it, and search the ashes for beer remains. And that's all very time-consuming. That's why New Age people can claim more nonsense in 5 minutes than a scientist can disprove in his lifetime. But even if I've tried everything to find out whether there is beer in this locked-up fridge or not, I can never be a 100% positive. A tiny bit of doubt remains. That's why in natural sciences there is no 100% certified knowledge. It's the same in real life. A farmer comes into a turkey stable every morning to feed them. The birds think, hey, our farmer is a really cool dude. But around Thanksgiving, they start realizing something is rotten in the stable of Denmark. In science, this is called falsifiability. Every theory is only valid as long as it is not replaced by a better one. And in this way, we keep striding forward. Or as Samuel Beckett put it, try again, fail better. And this was in fact a fundamental, a revolutionary insight. Maybe one of the biggest insights in human history ever. The idea that our knowledge is only the current status of error. 100 years ago, medical doctors were convinced that they are able to detect typhus just by touching people's tongues. And astonishingly, they were right, because they didn't wash their hands before. In science, it's all about testing of assumptions. To be fair, even the church tried that. In witch trials, for example, 400 years ago, they tied the accused woman's hands and feet and threw her into a lake. If she floated, she was a witch and therefore burned. If she sank, she was innocent and obviously drowned. For the church, a classic win-win situation. By the way, back in those days, the phrase, Rachel stopped smoking yesterday, had a completely different meaning. But those days are gone, fortunately. Not for everyone. A lot of people in the American Bible Belt still don't accept the theory of evolution. And small wonder, because evolution cleared out the idea that we human beings are superior to other creatures, which is simply wrong. We are definitely not superior to others. Take the water bear, for example. The water bear is a tiny boneless creature living in the sand. But this creature can tolerate an X-ray dose 1,000 times higher than we can, which doesn't make much sense for a boneless creature, of course. Hey Steve, how was your X-ray? Oh, they didn't find much. We are definitely not the crown of creation. And And some say, but is it really possible that such a complicated thing as the human eye could occur just by evolution, just by chance? Or the human shin bone, a perfect sensory organ for detecting sharp-edged furniture in the dark? Doesn't it all sound like there would have to be an intelligent designer? On the other hand, why did he create something as useless as the appendix? Maybe he's a surgeon, we don't know. Now, taking a closer look at the human body, we definitely have to doubt the existence of an intelligent designer. The left ear is linked to the right part of the brain, the windpipe crosses the gullet, the sewage drain goes directly through the red light district, just like in Amsterdam. I don't know if there's a God, but if he really exists, interior design is definitely not his strongest quality. I think the concept of evolution is so unsettling because it shows that nature doesn't have a definite goal. It doesn't follow a specific plan. It's based on coincidence. If there hadn't been a random meteorite impact 65 million years ago, the dinosaurs would still rule the world. And the probability that such a catastrophe will happen again is pretty high. On average, our planet is hit by such a big chunk every 50 million years, which means we are long overdue. And I can tell you exactly when it will happen again. On August 31st, in the year 4500. That's the day the Google calendar ends. Recently, an American friend of mine said, yeah, maybe you're right. A lot of our people don't know anything about evolution. Maybe it's because of our bad education system in America. Yours in Germany is much better. And I don't think it's true. I think we just have a different approach. In America, you say we go to school. In Germany, we say we go into school. So we Germans enter our school buildings, Americans just hang out in front of them. Maybe that's the difference. And don't get me wrong, also in Germany, there's a big lack of scientific knowledge. 45% of all German high school students believe that Voltaire invented the battery. Or went to spend a year as an ampere in France. It's a very funny joke. In Germany, okay. So, yes, now I lost my lines. Okay, so I have to look it up. But so far it went really great, I think. So, so, I have material for 30 minutes, and with looking it up, we get 60 minutes. Okay. So, yeah, furniture in the dark went great. Okay. Okay. Now, I think almost every nation has their own superstition. Also in Germany. In Germany, a lot of well-educated people believe in homeopathy. It's a big thing in Germany. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the basic idea. It's the German equivalent of creationism. It's this, homeopathy is this delusion thing. Or is it dilution? I don't know. Okay. Now, the basic idea of homeopathy is the more you dilute a special substance with a solvent like water, the more powerful the substance should get. And this dilution goes on and on until no single molecule of the original substance is left in the water. And then the remedy is supposed to be at its strongest. That's about as plausible as throwing your car keys in the Mississippi in St. Louis and then trying to start your car using a glass of Mississippi water from New Orleans. People are very good in believing bullshit. As a scientist, I'm often asked, so what do you think of astrology? And my answer is always the same: sorry, I don't believe in astrology because I'm a very skeptical person, which is typical for a Scorpio. At this point, the New Age delegation throw Shakespeare into the game. But there are more things between sky and earth than our school wisdom will let you imagine. And this always sounds pretty convincing, doesn't it? But what's really behind this quote? Hamlet says that after his dead father appeared as a ghost to tell him that he was killed by his own brother. But at this point, Hamlet is not ready to believe his ears and eyes. He wants proof. So he arranges a play for the whole family in which actors are reenacting the ghost scene, hoping that Hamlet's uncle, the suspected murderer, will reveal himself. That's just what happens. So Hamlet is not some gullible New Age hippie freak. He's a perfect example of a skeptical scientist. He doesn't rely on his feelings, instead he is testing his assumptions. And you all can do that too. Next time you visit a fortune teller and they ask you, so what do you want to know? Get up and leave. It's their job to know what you want to know. And don't get me wrong. Also in science, there are many phenomena where scientists reach their limits. When you ask a person to think of something positive while measuring their body temperature, the temperature will slightly go up, or it will slightly go down, or it will stay the same. But the craziest thing is, with something negative, it's exactly the other way around. Even after 2,000 years of philosophy, of science, of logic, we are still not very rational yet. And small wonder, because 99% of the time of our existence, our lives were dictated by completely different rules than today. When 100,000 years ago, a male Homo sapiens came to a waterhole and ran into a strange fellow, he had to answer only 4 simple questions. Male or female? If female, ready to conceive or not? If male, friend or foe? If foe, stronger or weaker? In only 1 second, he had to decide all that. Or there wasn't anything left to decide. No meeting, no coaching, no mediation, no phone a friend. 4 simple questions, 1 decision. And then came Starbucks. We are the first generation who can sit in a soy frappuccino grande latte double shot and be miserable from the bottom of our hearts. All this modern life is stressing us out. In the United States, a guy just recently destroyed his laptop with a rifle and put it on YouTube. A screenshot, so to speak. Something went wrong with the installation and he went nuts. Hasta la vista, Windows Vista. I feel this guy. Last week my phone company sent me a new phone. Included was a letter saying, your new phone isn't working, call us. We are living in a world we no longer understand. And that frightens us. In Germany, a good friend of mine founded an initiative against electrical smog because the telephone company installed a massive transmission tower in his neighborhood. Over 1,000 residents signed the paper because they started suffering from headaches since then. And when my friend handed over the paper to the company, their spokesman said, and how much worse will it get when we turn on this thing next week? This is a very good example of a typical German fear, the so-called German Angst. We Germans are afraid of everything. Stem cells, nuclear power, fracking, genetic engineering, you name it. If the Germans had ruled the world 1,000,000 years ago, our health and safety regulations would have prevented the discovery of fire. We are so full of fear. Before we go on holiday, almost every German takes out a Reiserücktrittsversicherung, a travel cancellation insurance. Almost every German has it, a Reiserücktrittsversicherung. We book an adventure trip to the cannibals in South America, but only with the Reiserücktrittsversicherung. Otherwise, it would be way too risky. One of the first 3 words German babies learn: Mom, Dad, Reiserücktrittsversicherung. Of course not. Mom and Dad come way later. And the 4th word is Fahrvergnügen, joy of driving. And this is very interesting, I think. Driving our cars is probably the only thing we Germans enjoy danger. When an American has a death wish, he strangles a bull's balls, sits on its back, and tries to ride it for as long as possible. We Germans invented the Autobahn instead. Cars are our holy cows. Because it's our constitutional right to go on a family trip in a Volkswagen with the speed of a cruise missile. Cars, what a great invention. Only 200 years ago, it took almost a day to cover a distance of 10 miles. And then a German guy invented the car, so we could cover the distance in only 10 minutes. And today we produce so many of them that it takes a day again to cover 10 miles. I guess that's why Google developed the self-driving car. It's able to drive into rush hour jam at 6 a.m. completely by itself, so that we can sleep in and follow 2 hours later with a subway. To a true German car maniac, self-driving is obviously not an option, because we want to decide ourselves what tree we hit. And we want to spend as much time as possible in our cars. Even the government supports this. In Germany, you are allowed to deduct 30 cents from taxes for every driven kilometer to your workplace. And a lot of Germans move as far away as possible from their jobs just to make money with commuting. Okay, I know, it's a little bit of a cliche. Not every German is into cars. When I moved to New York, beginning of July, at the border control, the officer asked me, "So, you're German, what's your favorite car?" And I said, "Sorry, officer, I don't care much for cars." And all of a sudden he looked at me very suspiciously. "You don't have a favorite car, so you can be German." "Sorry, sir, not every..." "Put your hands where I can see them." Actually, it was a very relaxed routine check, about 5 hours, and forget what you heard about waterboarding, it's actually not that bad. "It's a Porsche, a Porsche." "What model?" 911. Believe it or not, but cars are the only thing we Germans are really proud of. Feeling proud doesn't come natural to us, as opposed to Americans. Typical American always thinks the best is yet to come. And the reason for your optimism is obvious. It's because of Prozac. No, it's because of the American dream, of course. The pursuit of happiness, as stated in the Declaration of Independence. It's every American's duty to become happy. It's the law. If scientists found out that in 14 days a huge meteorite would destroy the whole planet, typical American would say, "Fuck it, we'll shoot it." In Germany, every newspaper would headline, "End of the world in 2 weeks. Germany will be hit the hardest. Buy a Reiserücktrittsversicherung now." dream. When you go into an American bookstore, you will find hundreds of books titled How to Be Successful. And the idea is always the same. A very successful person is introduced who possesses the following qualities: courage, diligence, and a readiness to take risks. Now the assumption goes, when you do have these qualities, you will become successful as well. Classic statistical error. Because we have no idea how many courageous, diligent, and ready to take risks type people are out there who did not make it. You know why? Unsuccessful people don't write books on success. I've tried hard, believe me, but on Amazon you won't find any books titled How to Fail Despite a Harvard Degree, My Life as a Loser, How I Lost My Right Eye to a Laser Beam. Forget it. In retrospect, a lot of success stories seem to us to be the logical consequences of a big master plan, but only in retrospect. Or would you have put your money on Apple 40 years ago? Or if someone had told us 10 years ago that one day you will go into an expensively designed store to buy tiny metal containers filled with 5 grams of coffee for $4, we all would have said, what a crazy idea. But why do we do it? Because it's so convenient and so tasty. No, 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 my wife says, because one day George Clooney will show up. And even in science, innumerous inventions were not foreseeable. Porcelain was discovered because alchemists wanted to produce gold. Scotch tape was planned as Band-Aid. Viagra was discovered because male test subjects didn't want to stop their medication even after the tests were finished. In the English language, there's a beautiful word for this phenomenon: serendipity. The German word is serendipity, because we Germans would never come up with a word like this. Serendipity describes the accidental discovery of something useful that you had never been looking for in the first place. Maybe the most famous example of serendipity is the discovery of penicillin. In 1928, Alexander Fleming was experimenting with staphylococci. And one day he forgot a petri dish with a bacteria culture that got contaminated with spores of fungi. And the mold that formed out was the basis for penicillin. A medical student's dream come true. Don't do the dishes for a week and be rewarded with a Nobel Prize. A lot of things in science cannot be calculated. At this point, usually the Silicon Valley delegation stands up and complains, sorry, we strongly disagree, because very soon our computers will be able to predict the future completely. And they are making great progress. Recently, Google developed an algorithm. This algorithm scanned 10 million YouTube clips, and now it's able to identify a cat with a certainty of 75%. Wow, 75%. On the other hand, a simple mouse can do it with a 100%. Maybe I'm wrong, but a company that will ask at every 4th cat, what the hell is that? A company like this is slightly overrated. Will computers eventually become more intelligent than we are? Will they even rule the world in the near future? In America, this already happened a few years ago. California was run by a Terminator T-800 for 8 years. And the systems are getting better and better. Walmart is able to diagnose pregnancy in young women just by analyzing their buying habits. And they can do it long before the women themselves are aware of their condition. I find this absolutely scary. Therefore, I decided to fight back. Sometimes when I do my shopping, I buy exactly what a pregnant woman would buy, plus a bottle of vodka and some condoms. And then I imagine the database experts staring at my shopping list, completely confused. And here you can see the fundamental deficit of big data. Data are not capable to analyze themselves. If you ask a computer about the connection between a music tape and a pen, it won't have any idea what you are talking about. Agreed, every person under 20 will neither, but at least for a different reason. Is there anybody in the room who tried to find a partner on a dating website? No? Yeah? Did it work? Oh, congratulations. I did that once just for research, and the procedure is well known. First, you have to fill in a detailed questionnaire. Which qualities do you expect from your companion? With what type of sport would you compare your last relationship? Tennis, marathon, trap shooting. And then an algorithm compares all your answers with the answers of all possible candidates, and if the match is good enough, you will be introduced to each other. And on this basis, every 11 minutes a single will fall in love. That's the advertising claim of Parship, the German market leader. Every 11 minutes a single will fall in love. Sounds fantastic, doesn't it? But if you do some math, the result is quite sobering. If every 11 minutes, 1 out of 5 million German Parship clients will fall in love, then 99% of all clients will go away empty-handed after 1 year. You get a higher success rate at a funeral in Amorbach. Computer-aided partner search has its limits because there are a lot of factors for a successful relationship that cannot be calculated. Common sense of humor, for example. Recently, my wife and I were invited by another couple that just had a baby, Kim. My wife looked at it and said, "Kim, ha, like the North Korean dictator." Good choice, he yells just like him. I thought it was very funny. Kim's mother was not so amused. Kim is a girl, she told us in a slightly offended tone. A girl, my wife replied. Thank God you didn't give her a stupid name like Tiffany. So does Kim have a middle name? It was the last time we saw them, but every time we remember this story, we crack up laughing. Common sense of humor is a very strong bond. But humor is a skill no algorithm is able to recognize. Computers have no sense of humor, as opposed to us. 2 E. coli bacteria come into a bar. The bartender says, "Sorry, we don't serve E. coli." "Why serve us?" The 2 reply, "We've been working in your kitchen for weeks." And don't get me wrong, computers will definitely change a lot. But I'm also convinced that the intelligent robot, that artificial intelligence, will always remain a running gag from the Silicon Valley. Up to this day, no computer is able to comprehend the meaning of a simple fairy tale. Machines don't know that people don't come back after they die. And they have no clue that with a piece of rope you can pull things but not push them. A simple fruit fly has only 100,000 neurons. That's a fraction of the processing capacity of an iPhone. But with these few neurons, the fly is able to navigate in 3 dimensions, can do loopings, and can turn our garbage into a swinger club. Computers calculate, brains comprehend. That's the fundamental difference. Recognizing a good friend from behind who is 60 meters away is very easy for us. For a computer, it's still very difficult, because it doesn't have a good friend. But it can multiply 65 by 78 faster than lightning. A person who can do that doesn't have a good friend either. Computers calculate, brains comprehend. Did you know that Walt Disney died 2 weeks before Disney World Florida opened? This poor guy worked on this for almost 20 years, but he never once saw it. People said at his funeral. But his brother replied, "You are wrong. All of this you already saw 20 years ago, and now you are able to see it too." It's exactly this kind of imagination that makes us humans so extraordinary. A lot of people think we mainly differ from animals because of our outstanding intelligence. On the other hand, what might our dogs think when we walk behind them holding a plastic bag full of their shit? It's not only our intelligence that makes us so extraordinary, it's our ability to imagine what's going on inside of others. Empathy. Recently my wife apologized for her wind without having farted because she wants me to think that hers don't smell. It's exactly this kind of imagination, this kind of empathy, why we dominate our planet, leading to fantastic innovations, like the wheel, the penicillin, and the Flachspüler. Do you know the Flachspüler? It's a kind of toilet architecture. It's a creepy invention. I think in England they call it poo shelf toilet. I have to explain this. As you might know, toilet architecture is very different all over the world. In France, the hole of a toilet is located in the back so that the stuff quickly disappears. In England or here in America, the hole is in the middle and it's filled with water so that you always get a wet feedback. In Germany, we invented something completely different. The Flachspüler. In a Flachspüler, the hole is in front, so that your droppings don't fall into the water. No, they land on a specific shelf and remain there in their full splendor. And I've thought about these different systems for a very long time. And I'm convinced the reason for this is deeply rooted in our different cultures. The French had the French Revolution. Off with the head, away with it, we don't give a shit. British, American idea, more pragmatic, more rational. Let it sink for a moment. Hole in the middle, instant feedback, then find a quick solution, flush it away, problem solved. German approach, metaphysics. The nation of poets and thinkers. Let's look at it from every perspective. With all our senses. Forget the solution, it's the problem that counts. The Flachspüler is the German platform of contemplation. Richard Dawkins, famous biologist, describes these inventions, these ideas, these thoughts as memes. If a meme is smart enough to help us to improve our lives, it will eventually succeed. Another very good example of a very powerful meme is the birth control pill. We all know the pill is not only a smart medical product, it also triggered the sexual revolution. Before the pill, all women had to go through very unreliable procedures, like the temperature method. Some women still use it. If the bedroom temperature is below 60 degrees, nothing happens. But the pill has changed everything. It has given women the opportunity to plan their own future without living a life like a nun. For us men, it always was much easier. In case of doubt, we just could deny our fatherhood. And then the paternity test came up. And now scientists are working on something completely new. The morning after pill for men. It's supposed to change man's blood type. All these memes have made our world a better place, thanks to science, thanks to engineering, and thanks to our imagination. And I have to admit, the German in me would argue, yeah, but imagination is not very efficient. And it's a fair point. What do you think are the most efficient creatures on our planet? Bacteria and microorganisms, paradoxically beings that are not necessarily known for their flashes of genius. Bacteria have been around for zillions of years because they have only one motto: keep cool, hang loose, don't think too much. This is the key to a very long life. That's why stupid people will never be extinct. No wonder keeping an overview can be pretty exhausting. 20% of all the energy consumption goes directly into the brain, if you like it or not. And for the really vital activities like eating, sleeping, digesting, having sex, the spinal cord is quite sufficient. Why then is evolution putting up with such a tremendous waste of energy? Because we humans aren't really good at anything but thinking. Every species outdoes us human beings in at least one quality. They run faster, they see better. There's an octopus that can remove its tentacle that it uses for reproduction. And this tentacle swims alone with the semen and can fertilize the females on its own. Clever idea. Especially when mating season and Super Bowl overlaps. And what are we really good at? Not very much. We cannot hear, see, or smell too well, have no fangs, no claws. When we first appeared 5 million years ago, every typical German would have said, upright walking, forget it. Not very efficient. But we have been reproducing like rabbits. We built cities, we invented the wheel, the penicillin, and the Reiserücktrittsversicherung. Because there's nothing that we are really good at except for thinking. This is our evolutionary slot. And isn't it amazing why so few people do it? But there's hope. It is always said that man is evil. Some say we are even the cruelest species on our planet because we are the only ones who kill others just for fun. But just take a quick look at cats. Cats are very cute, but only to us. To a fat domestic cat, killing mice is nothing else but a hobby. Good, clean fun for the whole family. Hey, let's go out in the garden for a little ethnic cleansing. We humans are not that bad. At least we've become more and more friendly over the centuries. It's hard to believe if you follow your president on Twitter, but it's true. Prehistoric skull findings show that 20% of all cavemen slayed each other. 20%. If a prehistoric plumber had installed the new Flachspüler in the wrong spot of the cave, he would have been killed by the whole tribe. But in the course of time, something remarkable happened. At some point, we began to develop compassion and empathy to strangers. Most animals do this only within their own pack. Wolves, for example, throw up their meat after hunting and share it with a group. We humans call this a bachelor party. At the beginning of mankind, compassion and empathy was limited just to our own pack as well. And then globalization started. In the 16th century, the Spanish traveled to the native people in South America and took away their gold, potatoes, and tomatoes. The Peruvian tribes returned this humiliation by playing panpipe in our city centers without mercy. But in general, globalization made us friendlier. Every time when I'm in London, I notice. If you ask a Londoner for direction and they have no idea where that place is, they give you a big smile and send you straight into the middle of nowhere. Because Brits think giving a stranger some direction is better than none. So friendly. But the friendliest people of all, in my opinion, are you guys, Americans. Yeah. Yeah, really. Seriously. You go for dinner in a restaurant and after 2 seconds a waiter shows up. Hello, I'm Matthew. I'm your waiter for tonight. And I'm sure you're going to have a great dinner experience in our establishment. I want you to feel comfortable, so if you have any questions, if you need anything, whatever it may be, please don't hesitate asking me, because I'm Matthew, I'm your waiter for tonight. At this point, the German in me always thinks, hey Matthew, I don't want a relationship. Just a cheeseburger. But again, our world is getting better and better. We all know our history, don't we? Our grandfathers and great-grandfathers, our ancestors killed each other again and again. And now we are sitting here together and we are laughing about the same jokes, more or less. And it's not because there's a God that made our world a better place. No, it's because of us. It's because of our human ability to learn from the past. And that's astonishing because our brain hasn't changed for the last 100,000 years. It still runs on a hardware that has been updated for the last time shortly after the birth of Prince Philip. If you shorten the history of our planet to one single day, to 24 hours, we human beings appear only 77 seconds before midnight. But within these few seconds, we've truly learned whatever holds the world together in its innermost folds. With modern science, we flew to the moon, we cured epidemics, and we decoded our entire DNA. Since then, we know that 99%, that every single person shares 99% of their genetic material with every other person, which means we are literally all related. Germans, Brits, Americans, Mexicans, even the French. With the help of science, we've come to know very well how our entire world works, but we still have not the slightest clue why it actually works. Why there's something like atoms or natural constants or David Hasselhoff. We have no idea. But that's okay, because science cannot explain everything, and it isn't at all perfect. It's just the best we have. Once I asked the old priest from my childhood in Amorbach, Father, what did God do before he created the world? And he looked me straight in the eyes and said, he prepared hell for people who ask questions like this. I think this is the biggest difference between science and religion. Believers constantly provide ready-made answers. Scientists constantly provide questions. Why does everybody call our Catholic priest father? Except his own children, they call him uncle. Good questions are subversive, creative, and uncomfortable, but the answers lead to completely new perspectives. Richard Feynman, famous Nobel Prize winner, once said, "Science is a long story about learning not to fool ourselves." Only 400 years ago, every disease, every hurricane, everything that lied beyond the normal was thought to be witchcraft. Today, modern science gives us profound explanations of phenomena that were reason enough to burn women for hundreds of years. The biggest gift of science is teaching us how to free our minds. So, be skeptical, stay curious, ask questions. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much. So, this was Sexy Science. This was my show. If you want to know more about me, about my other projects in the United States, take a quick look at my website, vince-ebert.com. There you will find more tour dates. If you enjoyed the show, tell it to your friends. If not, I'm sure you know a lot of people you can't stand. Just send them to me, I would appreciate it. And at this point of the show, the Germans in the room always might be a little bit confused because we already finished after 1 hour. It's the classic length of a typical English or American stand-up show. In Germany, it's completely different. The shows of German Kabarettisten are usually taking forever because we Germans want value for money, even if we hate the show. Oh, this guy is horrible, but we paid for him. Come on, keep going. Seriously, there are some German colleagues who do more than 3 hours. And when they finally get off the stage, the show still isn't over. Then the encore starts. Every German audience expects to see an encore. It's the law. And the procedure of an encore is always the same. The artist goes off the stage and pretends, that's it, I'm going home, thank you very much. Goes off the stage, but he's just hiding over there, hoping that the crowd is pretending to want him back. And after 2 seconds, few moments, the artist comes off the stage, bravo, bravo, the audience, and after a few moments, the artist comes back and pretends that he's so surprised and so moved. Oh, thank you very much, I didn't expect that. In an encore situation, everyone is pretending something. Crazy. English or American stand-up comedians don't do encores. And I didn't know that. Last year, I had my English debut of the Sexy Science show at the Fringe Festival in Edinburgh. Beautiful place, you have to go there. Yeah. And the show went great, beautiful audience, kind people, and I finished my show, went off the stage, hiding behind the curtain, and after a few moments I came back, and they were all gone. They left within seconds. So I stood there, looked at 100 empty seats, then I did my encore, and also went home. So, thank you again for pretending that you enjoyed the show, and for not leaving. And at the very end, please let me say a few personal words, because moving to the US and doing my shows in English really means a lot to me. It has always been a dream of mine to do a show in English, to do a show in the US, and I was so afraid of it, and I still am, because I'm not very good at learning languages, and I still use words in the wrong way, but that shouldn't be impotent. On the other hand, I'm German. I always want to be perfect. To speak English incorrectly is still one of my biggest fears. But I try to get over it. And this is also my appeal to you. Face your fears, whatever they are, and force yourself to get over them. Because the ability to learn something new, to change something in your life, is in all of us. Our brain is just built for it. You just have to use it. Thank you very much. Have a good night. No encore.